Uh, uh, I'm gonna put it in the chat,
Yeah,
Heather.
Wendy, go ahead.
Your mic's not, or your speakers aren't working, Jennifer. Yeah, she can't hear any of us.
I cannot hear anybody. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I see. Haha. Okay. But you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Okay, that's a
Yes.
problem. So let's see if we can fix that. The solution might be I leave real quick and come back. That usually is what works. I'm gonna just do it. I'll be right back.
Okay. Heather, what you're talking about with prospectus timing and especially getting that IRB approval, because you can't get prospectus
Right.
approval until you have IRB approval. That's definitely on our agenda for today.
Okay.
Talking about timing. Yeah.
It's them. It's the students. And we're looking for any advice we can get to get them to understand that they can't.
I'm still
And
not
it's
hearing.
going to become more of a problem,
Kara,
right?
can you try talking?
Yeah, we're talking.
Oh yeah, I'm
We're
not hearing.
talking.
Okay, this is. Well, all right. I think we're going to go with it because it's 9 and we don't want to waste time with technology. And I think as long as Kara can hear and you can hear, right?
Yes,
And we're going to use the chat. I mean, we're not planning,
Yes.
right? It's going to be a lot of people, so we're going to rely on the chat. As long as you can hear me, which is okay, yeah, I think we're going to go for it. So I'm going to go ahead, re-click record, and
I think
we're going to make it work. Okay, I guess, hey, it's smart. It knows we're still recording. Okay,
Yep.
So I will share, and I guess.
And we will talk about that, Heather, more when we get to that section.
Why this wouldn't be working? Yeah, don't know. Okay. Okay. Well, so much for technology. All right, we'll start over and get these slides going. So we do appreciate your time this morning. This is our rescheduled meeting from a month ago when we got the cold cancellation day from CMU. And we decided to try to just do this on Teams because sometimes that just works better for more people. So welcome to everyone to kind of our spring grad studies meeting, and special welcome to everyone who's new in their roles in supporting grad programs. Kara and I really thank you for attending and thank you for all the work you do to support our CMU grad students. So as I was saying, our goals today are to share some information, but really also to collect information. And so kind of as we're thinking about grad programs, as you're thinking about your program, if you feel like you'd like to share a challenge that's kind of occurring in your program, we'd appreciate knowing those things. If you have suggestions for topics for workshops for students, workshops for all of us grad program coordinators, or just other individuals across campus that also support grad programs, that maybe would be useful to kind of bring people together, please share those ideas. Okay, so I think Kara and I are going to kind of tag team this morning, but before we kind of jump into it, we just want to remind you, we moved last month into new offices in Park Library. So this is all the contact information for myself, Kara, and Patty Esch. So please do not hesitate to reach out anytime you have questions. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kara, and she will share some information with you.
All right. A couple of our events that are coming up next Friday is our 3-minute thesis finals. So that is located, it's going to be at 3:00 in the Park Library Opperman Auditorium. If you've never heard of this, please come out. It's not going to be that long of an event, and I think it's going to be well worth your time. Come on out, see what our grad students are doing. They get 3 minutes, one PowerPoint slide, and they have to entertain, educate, inform, and they have to communicate their research in a way that anyone can understand and appreciate. And you'll get to vote for your favorite for the People's Choice Award as well. So come on out for that. March 24th, we do trivia night at Hunter's Ale House here in town for grad students. They can come out for free appetizers, $1 off the drink of their choice, and then they can stay for trivia night. And then March 25th is our deadline for SCREE. If you're not familiar with SCREE, it's the Student Creative and Research Endeavors exhibition. It's on April 15th in Finch Fieldhouse. Any undergrad or grad student or College of Medicine student can reserve a spot to have a table or easel and showcase their research or creative work that they've been working on under a faculty member. So please encourage your students to register. Please come on out for that event. Jennifer, if you can hear me, we'll go to the next slide. Awesome. A reminder about our upcoming student grants. The graduate SPAR grant is coming up. The deadline is March 17th. That grant provides a summer stipend for grad students, as well as some additional funds for research expenses or creative work expenses. We have our PECP grant. This is for students that are going to a conference to present or going to a competition or presentation, that type of thing. For conferences that happen during the spring semester, that application deadline is March 23rd. For conferences in the summer, that application deadline is June 22nd. We also have the GA conference grant that has a rolling deadline. So as long as they apply before the conference, that's fine. That funding is available for teaching or administrative GAs. And then we also have a publication grant, which is also has a rolling deadline. And that's for students who have publication expenses. That funding is available for them as well.
Come on, listen.
So the next couple of the next couple of slides, we just wanted to give you an idea of enrollments for grad students. If you weren't already familiar, enrollments
And K-Rod,
happen-
sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just before we move on to that, I did want to just ask if we get questions about the eligibility for these grad student grants pretty regularly, and I think the guidelines have shifted over time, but we really do want to make sure that we're serving as many students as we can with our limited budget. So if anyone does have suggestions for any revisions to those guidelines, feel free to put them in the chat or reach out to us to share ideas. I think we're kind of open to just kind of always reimagining how things are working. Just wanted to mention that.
Yes, we typically review those in early summer for the next academic year. So, yep.
Yeah.
When it comes to enrollments, as you can probably guess, enrollments have been on the decline over the last 10, 12 years. As you can see here, this is the total graduate student enrollments. So this includes on-campus and off-campus online. These numbers here in the graph are fall numbers. However, in the blue outline will show you the last spring and this spring, which is also on the decline. The next slide will show you our global off-campus online numbers. Again, these are fall numbers, but the numbers there in the blue are from last spring to this spring, which is a slight increase, which is a great sign. And then the next slide will show you our main campus numbers, which is a bit of up and down, a pretty significant up back in 23, but you'll see a significant down again, especially when it comes to our international students. And a lot of that has to do with things somewhat out of our control, deciding on what the government decides to do. But I'm sure you've experienced these numbers in your program as well. And but this gives you an idea of what that looks like over the past 10, 12 years. So we do have some good news though, and you may have heard of the Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, and they have identified three investments that are grad related. One is just improving the communications regarding prospective graduate students and making improvements there. Also improving the grad admission decision turnaround time with admissions, and then improvements regarding accelerated graduate degree programs. And that is an area where we have seen growth, significant growth, both in numbers of students enrolled and the numbers of programs offering an accelerated option. So we are actively, feverishly making improvements to accelerated language. Many of you have been working with us directly, and we will continue to do that work over the next few weeks. Hopefully, you will also see improvements to web pages over the next few months. Just trying to be better at marketing for these accelerated programs, making things clearer to students at what an accelerated program is, what it offers for them, so that you can attract students to your accelerated program, and it's clear to them what they get, and you get quality students and students that are going to continue in your master's program and graduate as well. So those are some quick highlights, and I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Kara. And maybe this is a good time just to ask if there are any questions. The way my screens are, I can't see the chat. So feel free to just unmute and ask a question if you have any regarding any of the information Kara just shared. Okay, so if we don't have any questions at this time, we'll just move forward. I wanted to talk about the graduate transfer credit policy. So you've gotten a couple drafts of that recently. We would really appreciate your attention to review this revision. It's somewhat significant in the sense of how it would look. We sent you the original, the current language, which has 13 criteria listed out, and the proposed revision, which has 5. And we were able to work with the registrar and kind of talk through what are the current practices. There were some redundancies. And so that's how we kind of arrived at that revision. So the grad committee has been working on this grad policy changes. If we are to make those kinds of changes, the graduate committee needs to recommend those, right, approve those at one of their meetings, and then they go on to the academic senate for consideration. And so certainly we would like to get feedback, well before it moves on to the academic senate. So please take a look. We've heard from a couple people with questions. And if you could get that feedback to us within the next week, we would really appreciate it so that we can potentially kind of get this moving. One of the changes that we're proposing is actually to make things a bit more flexible when students are transferring in credits. We are proposing that if a student has extenuating circumstances and wants to ask for an exception to the time limits, which are listed here, right? So courses expire after 7 years if they're going to be used towards a master's or specialist degree. And then those courses expire after 8 years to be used towards a doctoral degree if the student has a relevant master's degree at the start of their program. And then the students in doc programs have 10 years for that coursework if the student does not have a relevant master's degree when they start that doc program. So these are the current years, right, the time limits for coursework, and students have had the possibility to request exceptions if they have extenuating circumstances. So if you have questions about that, you can ask, or we can chat about it later. But we're proposing allowing the exceptions to apply to both CMU credits and transfer credits. Right now, students don't have the possibility to request an exception for transfer credits. And we're not really sure why that was put into place at the time it was put into place. But again, we're just trying to look for as many ways as we can to be flexible while still being compliant with HLC, which is definitely one of our driving considerations as we think about all of our policies. Okay, any quick comments on that or questions? Okay, great. Another policy the grad committee is interested in revising is the what's called the graduate education policy, but which is really a policy that kind of regulates graduate faculty status. So this was last revised in 2020. Right now, this policy says that we have at CMU 2 categories of graduate faculty, and the names of those categories are full and associate. And I think the names of the categories, as well as, I don't know, perhaps just the language in the policy itself, lead to some confusion. The only reason that anyone would need to request the full grad faculty status is to serve as a chair, a committee chair, right, or a major advisor of a thesis or dissertation, or to oversee a graduate research assistant. So the language we're using right now is a bit unusual compared to our comparator universities. And there's a couple other aspects that just could probably get streamlined. So our goal again is clarity, to try to make this more straightforward to everyone on campus, and possibly to have the criteria for grad faculty status be established at the department or college level, rather than having or trying to have some universal language that fits for everybody, because that is certainly a challenge, and scholarly activity looks quite different as we look across all of our different programs and departments. So that's in the works. We have an ad hoc committee. There's representation from all of our colleges, as well as the graduate committee. And so that group has met a few times, and they are working on this. So if you have questions, it's usually the associate dean from the different colleges that is the representative on that committee. But feel free to reach out if you have a question or a particular suggestion in regards to this. Okay, so now we want to talk just a little bit about Plan B programs. So again, this idea of trying to increase flexibility for students. I think, the enrollment data we shared at the beginning, I think it kind of has been a major point of conversation right on campus for quite a while, because if we don't have the student enrollment that we want or that we need to support our programs and our faculty and staff, then it becomes a problem. So definitely with the increase in accelerated master's students, I think these Plan B programs become of particular interest, and perhaps it's an opportunity to look at them with kind of a new lens. And so I'll just want to mention what the current policy is and what the language really means and what your options are, in case you want to kind of reimagine what your Plan B program looks like in your area. So again, why you might want to consider revisions to increase enrollment for regular Plan B students, or potentially to increase enrollment for accelerated Plan B students. So the two parts of the policy I just wanted to highlight in blue here is that for a Plan B, the students need to submit evidence of scholarship and or creative or artistic ability beyond the completion of coursework. And so I want to clarify what those words mean. And then the second piece of it is that for Plan B, there is no thesis, but there must be significant evidence of scholarship, and then many examples are listed there. And so I'm going to just share some options just in case that's helpful to people. So the first part, let's get rid of that. The first part, what does evidence of scholarship beyond the completion of coursework mean? So despite the actual words, in practice, the scholarship can be performed in the context of a course, but it does not have to be performed within a course. So we have Plan B project courses. I just listed a couple of examples here where there are papers that students are writing, closely mentored with faculty members, one-on-one mentoring, but they're writing those papers within the context of a course, like Math 698, for example. We have many examples of research courses, right? So where scholarly activity is occurring within the context of a course where the student is earning credits for that work. And we also have examples of internship or practicum, like Stat 695 is one example. So despite the wording in the policy, it is absolutely an option for every program to have a Plan B type course if you want your students to be earning credit, right, for that. The second piece I want to mention is just kind of addressing this challenge of how do we increase or even consider increasing Plan B enrollments when faculty workload is just kind of at an all-time high, right? Everyone is stretched incredibly thin. We know this. So I think it's a particular challenge to try to ask faculty to do more outside of their course assignments. And it's just not possible, right? So I just wanted to share what some of the different models for Plan B curricula look like. And they're basically two flavors. There's what's in blue and there's what's in orange. So all of the examples in blue require one-on-one mentoring or supervision by a faculty member. And so oftentimes that's going to add to faculty workload outside of their normal teaching workload, right? Outside of those course assignments. However, there are other ways to satisfy the bulletin requirements, and that is to insert a capstone project within a course where 10 to 20 students, maybe even more, but a group of students enroll in a course. The faculty member teaching that course, it's in their load, it's part of their workload, and they're doing that scholarly activity. They're designing research, they're doing professional practice, perhaps original programming, right, in an example of CPS 691. So this would be an example where there's not one-on-one faculty time. And for Plan B, that might make sense in your program if you haven't thought about that previously. Just another example is listed there, which is engineering, where they have a series of 3 courses that their Plan B students must take. And in those courses, small research projects are completed and they are presented orally and in writing. So these absolutely satisfy the bulletin requirements. And we just wanted to share these options with everyone to make sure everyone was aware of them. If you have a different model or an idea to share, please feel free to type it in the chat, or at this time, just unmute and share other ideas that you have for Plan B.
Hi, Jen Weibel. We're in MALDT Ed Tech. We do a capstone. Students have a portfolio that they, in a class, they have a portfolio that they developed that shows their expertise across the entire master's program, and then they actually design and create an online learning project that demonstrates their skills across it, and that is graded in the conjunction with that course requirement. And so then it's no one-on-one faculty time unless they have questions or need help.
Thank you for sharing that, Jen. And do you feel like that works well in your area?
I think it does, because a lot of ours, especially for people that are not in the classroom, like a lot of mine are K-12 teachers, but for people that are not in that area, which is about probably 20% of that group, it allows them to customize it for their work area, and then it creates a portfolio of skills they can use for job applications.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have an example or model that they would want to share?
This is Steve Gorsuch, and I think this is a really good discussion to have. And I wonder if we could have, and maybe you already have it somewhere, but like a repository of different ways people do this across campus, because it'd be nice to see what other people are doing, so we could kind of so we don't have to reinvent everything.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Thank you for that. I think that's a great suggestion, and that I think this slide is meant to almost be like the start of that repository, right? But absolutely, we can do that. And you know, one question I think that I've had is, you know, where to put materials, right? I mean, it's one thing we can email things out. And we do have a lot of things on our website, but something like this is not really something we would probably put on a website. So, you know, we may just generate like a SharePoint folder for all grad coordinators. I think it gets tricky. There's a lot of turnover. But at any rate, we can certainly kind of put some things together, even in a simple Word document, just with course numbers and things, so that everyone can sort of very easily know where to look to see what these examples look like.
Yeah, this is Heather Polinsky. I'll turn my camera on. So our Plan B in Media Arts, formerly BCA, was Thesis Light. So we only required 2 faculty members instead of 3 for a thesis. And when we had 60 grad students, there was no way we could do theses. So we said, everybody's got to do a Plan B, because it doesn't go through the university. We control the process. But it was a full-fledged thesis paper that they end with. It's a research project. And so now I'm like, wow, I thought that's what we had to do.
Yes, Heather, yeah, thank you.
Maybe we don't. Yeah, now we don't have 60 grad students. We're much smaller, and we're doing more more theses, but we are having that problem of it does go through the university and you have to meet their criteria and all of that, and having problems with them meeting them.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about theses and dissertations and just kind of what the current, parameters are, and we want to hear where the challenges are. And there's some limits to what we're going to be, what we're able to do, of course, on our side. But I do think the Plan B, and again, it kind of depends on your program, what you're preparing the students to do next, right? I mean, is a thesis the right scholarly work that really is setting that student up for their next step? Is that what they should be doing? Or is that not what's required, right? So I think these Plan B ideas are important, just to kind of really take a minute, hopefully, and think about, discuss back in your areas, and see what makes sense. But I will follow up to kind of, Steve's suggestion of just having at your fingertips kind of these different examples. To your point, Heather, like, I think also, until I took on this role a year and a half ago, I think, I've learned a lot about what all the options are, and I get to see what each program is doing. And I really kind of realized, I don't think everyone understands what all those options are, right? And so that's kind of why we wanted to have that conversation today.
Yeah. Now we broaden out what they can do. Some of them are doing like a business plan. Some of them are doing a screenplay. What they have to do a lot of research to be able to write the script and all of that kind of stuff. So we do widen out what they can do, but it still runs like a thesis.
And that's an option, right? Again, if that's what makes sense to you, right? And you want to have like committees and all of that kind of structure to those projects, you are absolutely free to do that, but you don't have to. And I guess that's really the message.
So Jennifer,
Yes.
This is Debbie, Silva Chair. So when we were a master's degree in the physical therapy department, students had the option of either one. They could do a Plan B or a thesis. Majority, I think I remember maybe 3 theses being done, while we were a master's degree, because that required a committee and students didn't want to do that much work particularly. So most of the time they did Plan B. Now that we're a doctoral program, we are all Plan B. And that's just because they can't do the level of research for a PhD because we're a clinical doctorate. So
right. Sure.
Yeah. And then how we do our, just as a option for faculty getting credit, we have 2 final research projects students have to do, and they have a choice of writing case reports while they're out on their rotations, and or doing prospective research. Up until a couple of years ago, faculty who were supervising the prospective research didn't get credit for it. They basically put it in service for their promotion tenure stuff. A couple of years ago, we said this is not working. So now when the student's project is coming to fruition, they can take a credit for each of those 2 courses. And our students too, who are doing prospective, it's not usually one-on-one, it's usually one faculty to 2 or 3 students. The students work in a project together. So that might be another option for people in terms of the prospective stuff. Students can do group projects.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes, absolutely. To that point, right? I mean, again, these sort of 2 kinds of, I call them flavors, right? But 2 different styles of doing Plan B. I mean, of course, there's all the great in between that one-on-one, student faculty one-on-one kind of model, and a whole course with, 10, 20, even 30 students. Of course, there's the in between as well. So that's great to mention. And thank you for sharing. Any other comments about Plan B?
Jason Taylor has a nice comment in the chat for people to read about their approach.
Thank you, Kara. I mean, feel free to read it out loud. Okay. So lots of options. We'll try to just, again, we will follow up on this and try to put a little document together to have all those. And if you have questions, just please reach out. And the last thing I just want to say is, just from a curriculum standpoint, one of the responsibilities I have is to serve on graduate committee. And one thing that surprises me almost every year is how early the deadlines are to get program changes for the following academic year. So those deadlines are December. So, right, if you want to have a change for fall 27, it has to be fully approved all the way through the Senate 2-week, whatever time, all the way through by December. So I would encourage you to start if you are thinking about changes, I would encourage you to think about those changes, get them out of your department and to the college committee this semester if you can, just so you're definitely going to have those in place for fall 27. So that's just one more pro tip about our very long curriculum clock that we have, or our calendar. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to remind everyone that HLC is coming to CMU for a site visit as part of our reaccreditation, April 13th and 14th. And hopefully you've heard this. It's certainly a discussion point at Academic Senate. It's a pretty big deal. So there's a small committee that comes to campus to do this assessment. They talk with people, they talk spontaneously with people. I've been told we're all supposed to know our mission statement, so I know I need to practice up on that. But they will ask questions. So just want to put that on your radar. And part of that reaffirmation is that they are reviewing if CMU is following all of their own policies. And also, I guess, making sure that they're consistent with HLC policy. So from a graduate program perspective, please always just be in the habit of reviewing if your individual program policies are really in sync with the CMU policies. We want to avoid conflicts. I think, again, I've learned a lot about our policies over the last year and a half. We have put together a checklist of key information of the policies in the bulletin for grad programs with current links. And we send that out every fall, but if you don't have it, if you don't yet have a program handbook, we really highly recommend that you have one. I know that Dave Patton was reaching out through the deans to ask all programs to have links to their program handbook on their web pages. That again is with an eye to HLC. They want to make sure that that information is accessible to students. So if you don't have that checklist, please reach out and we are happy to send it. We try not to send too many emails, but I know sometimes it seems like a lot. And so I think maybe we won't share it out again necessarily with everyone unless someone thinks that's a good idea, because we did share it back in September. Okay, so this is important for all of us, and I think everything we've talked about so far applies to all of our graduate programs. We have a lot of kinds of graduate programs at CMU, right? We heard about those, the clinical program, physical therapy, which is definitely, those programs are definitely kind of structured and managed in a little bit of a different way than some of our other kinds of graduate programs. We have online programs, main campus, hybrid, many kinds. And what we're going to do now is kind of shift gears and spend the rest of our time talking about the programs that include either a Plan A thesis or a doctoral dissertation. And so we did organize our slides so that if you are in a program that does not have a Plan A thesis or a doctoral dissertation, we've given you 29 minutes back of your day, right? So hopefully that's helpful to you. And thank you again for coming. But if you have a program, if you're participating in any way in a program that has a Plan A thesis or a doctoral dissertation, please stay on our meeting today, and we're going to just talk through a handful of slides to share some information with some reminders, and then again to ask for you for some information. Okay, so the first point is just a reminder that we do have deadlines for submission of theses and dissertations on our website. And these deadlines for the submission of the thesis for each graduation date are not the same as what you see on the registrar calendar. Sometimes there's confusion there. We also have guidelines on the prospectus and the getting started in research. That's one PDF. We have a separate PDF that has the guidelines for thesis and dissertation. it's really important that all students and all committee chairs and really all faculty participating on a committee are familiar with those guidelines. So please have links to them in your handbooks. Please share them with your students and faculty, and just encourage people to be familiar with those. We go over a lot of the guidelines from the thesis and dissertation PDF in a workshop that we offer once a semester. Now, that happened on February 12th for this semester. We'll do it again early in the summer. We reach out to all students and their committee chairs when the student applies to graduate. So you get a very specific invitation. We record that workshop. So there is a link to the February recording on our website. And one of the key points is that we have sort of step-by-step screenshot instructions on how to use Authenticate. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. Okay, and now we have a little poll. And when we were going to meet in person, we were going to do this a different way, but for today, I want to try to use the chat. So if you could just type into the chat the timing of the prospectus. So if your program has master's students who write a thesis, when do the students most frequently complete that grad studies prospectus? Is it in the first, second, third, or fourth semester? And you can just type a number, and I'm just going to wait a few seconds and see what that looks like. So you're just telling us what's the most common semester when your students are finishing a grad studies prospectus, which probably is your same prospectus, but I'm just referring to it as that. And let's see if I can actually see the chat. All right, I'm seeing second, I'm seeing third, second or third, okay. Not seeing any first or fourth. That probably makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you for that. We're going to have one more poll, and then we're going to talk about some aspects of the prospectus. So now shifting to doctoral students. If your program has doc students who are writing a dissertation, please indicate in the chat when are students most frequently completing that prospectus. And we gave options year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, we got second, third, and one comment about trying to shift to first, which is interesting. Okay. All right. So not a huge range, right? Like everyone seems to be kind of in a similar spot for where they're at least recommending their students get these prospectuses completed. So the national data, right, is that doctoral students most commonly complete the prospectus in year 2 or 3, which is spot on with what you've all just reported. The timing most often is coinciding with advancement to candidacy. So that is something that the Office of Grad Studies or the former College of Grad Studies used to kind of track and monitor, and there was a form for advancement to candidacy. We got away from that for reasons I couldn't tell you exactly, but we have. But it's obviously a big milestone for a doctoral student to compete, finish a qualifying exam if there is one, defend successfully that prospectus, and advance to candidacy. And then the national data are exactly, again, what you've all just reported, that master's students are most commonly completing a prospectus in semester 2 or 3. And I think the key here is that it's great to hear that this is what's going on in your programs. It's really important that our students have enough time to do the work after finishing the prospectus. So I put together in the little orange box just kind of the basic workflow. It differs a little bit across programs, but students, of course, have to select a research topic. They need a committee chair. They assemble a committee. The committee chair is going to help with any IRB, IACUC, IBC approvals if needed. The student's going to write and defend that prospectus. we ask in our office for essentially a short summary of the prospectus, right? It's 1 to 2 pages. That's approved by the chair, the committee chair, that is, by all the committee members and by the program director. And then it comes to our office. And then we just look everything over, make sure the committee composition meets all of the CMU guidelines, that the IRB, et cetera, approvals are in place. And that at that point, when the prospectus is approved by Grad Studies, that is when the student is allowed to begin data collection and analysis. Okay, that's the official language. So the timing really does matter in terms of when the student starts. And obviously it takes a bit of work for the student to be able to hit that major milestone. It obviously can't happen in the first semester, or I'd be surprised, I suppose, if it could. But putting it off and procrastinating leads to some problems that we do see sometimes. Okay, and so we're going to talk about some of those. One of them is about this policy here, which is under credits and grading, which says that a master's or specialist student may not enroll for more than 3 thesis credits until the prospectus is fully approved. A doctoral student may not enroll for more than 6 dissertation credits until the prospectus is fully approved. So again, that of course means the timing of when the prospectus is approved matters. It's sort of a gatekeeper in a way, right? The student can't continue enrolling in thesis and dissertation credits until the prospectus is completed. And this kind of makes sense because, the student shouldn't be doing the work of the thesis, collecting, analyzing data until the plan is fully approved by everyone. Okay, so then right below that paragraph, which I want to talk about a little bit more, just reminds everyone that CMU requires that students earn 6 to 9 hours of thesis credits, and doctoral programs have a much bigger range, a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 36 credit hours, which is a very big range. And those matter as well, and we'll talk about why. So you might want to just kind of take a look and see what your current program is requiring. Is it 6 hours of thesis or 9? Is it, on the low end of the range for the dissertation at 12, or do you have a much bigger number? And what does that mean to the student, right? So we'll talk about that. I guess, one thing that I don't have in the slides and just occurred to me that is really important to mention again is one of the headwinds for grad programs are the changes in the federal grad loans. So these changes are not going to be helpful to most of our students. I mean, it's the opposite. The Grad Plus loan is going away July 1, and there are limits on how much funding the students can take out in the federal loans. And so if our programs are too big with too many credits, or more than are needed, I should put it that way. If the program has more than really what is needed, you might want to take a look at that, see if you can make it a little bit smaller so that it's more affordable, because that's going to be another challenge for all of our programs as we kind of look forward. Okay. So I just wanted to just spell this out because we've learned that this policy just really wasn't completely understood or known by folks. So these limits about registering for thesis and dissertation credits, we just want to remind your students not to ask for an override if they see this error message like it's shown on the far right. If they get an error message that says you need an approved prospectus to take more credits, that means you have to get the prospectus done, right? We're not going to override that. We're not going to provide an exception because we have a policy and there's reasons for our policy. This policy applies to everyone who's helping students with course registrations, including any programs where you have a cohort, in online programs where we have someone in IO who's helping with registrations, right? This policy applies to everybody. So we know it hasn't been well understood or well known, so we just are trying to get that word out to avoid problems. And so when we think about sort of translating that policy into just different words, which is sometimes helpful, We again remind you that a proof prospectus is required prior to collecting data or analyzing data that's going to be used in the dissertation. The approval is really required in the semester or term prior to the student registering for the greater than 3 or 6 credits. And students cannot retroactively add credits midway through a semester or term. So I made this little simple graphic, right, of the little red arrows with X's. Students cannot add credits after drop add, right? They can't add credits in the middle of an 8-week term, only the green arrows at the very beginning. And similarly, in the 16-week semester, they can't add credits midway through. And that means they have to plan, right? They definitely have to plan. And we know that takes work, and that's where your advising is so critically important. So why is it really a problem if a student adds these credits midway through a semester? Like if the prospectus is approved midway through the semester, why can't, we just kind of add those? And here's the reasons. The record on the transcript would state that the student started the work before the required approvals, right? So it's really kind of just not following the policy, quite honestly. And most importantly, there are federal compliance implications with any students with IRB requirements. So if the student doesn't have that IRB approval until midway in a semester, if a transcript is showing they started that work in January, but they get the approval in March, that's a problem for us, right? We're out of compliance. That's a serious problem. So it's very important we all follow this. And the next thing I want to talk about is the expectations, another CMU policy. I feel like we definitely are on a theme today with policies, that the work expected per credit is 45 hours. That is we have a policy on the books for this. That means that for 6 credits of any coursework, but including thesis and dissertation, 270 hours of work is expected. And so when students don't plan ahead, when there's some procrastination, or for whatever reason they're a little behind in getting that prospectus approved, and then they want to hurry up and finish and graduate, I want to say really clearly, it is not appropriate to do all of the work of a dissertation in an 8-week period, right? Most students are not able to work on that dissertation 34 hours a week for 8 weeks, which is what it would take to get that 270 hours of work. In addition, I also personally feel like that's a very compressed amount of time that doesn't really fully support the idea of what the expectations are for synthesis and application that we're looking for in a dissertation. And frankly, I don't think your programs, I've never seen in a handbook the idea to suggest that students should do this in 8 weeks. I know that's not what you think either, but yeah, we are seeing requests for this, and we are seeing students trying to do this. And so again, we just want to just ask for your help and make sure that students are not trying to like hurry up and finish at the end. When a student is thinking about, okay, I need to get 6 more dissertation credits, that really needs to happen over at least 16 weeks. And more time is common in many of your programs, which I know. Okay, so just wanted to explain some of the policies and some of the reasons why things are the way they are. It's always possible for changes to be made, but that's probably a conversation for another day. But those are the kinds of things that we'd like to know about. Like if we should have a follow-up meeting and talk about any of these different aspects. If these are not working well in your programs, we do want to know that. Okay, but for now, and especially with HLC coming, it's important in our office that we have the ability to show that we are applying our policy as consistently as possible.
Jennifer, we do have a question from Jen Weibel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so I have 2 things with this, the credits per semester. And I know you and I talked about this a couple different times. With my adult students, typically it's a maximum of the 6,898 credits or dissertation credits in a 16-week semester. We do have exceptions though, where, for example, two of my students have recently been furloughed, and therefore they are, you know, we put through a thing to add dissertation credits for them because they are now going to be able to work 40 hours a week for the rest of the semester to finish up their writing, because we have a lot of dissertation credits. So they've already been taking them for 2 other semesters. They just have to finish them up. So that's an exception. I won't ask for that one. My other problem is with my military students. We are a very military friendly organization. And I've had some conversations with the military students. We may want to look at exceptions for how they do this, because a lot of the military students, their aid is only for, 3 years total. And so they are looking at a master's program in a year and then having 2 years for their doctoral work. What a lot of them have been trying to do is load their credits so that they can take advantage of the military, because their people will tell them, take all the credits you possibly can, and then, finish your work as you're able to do so. Do we have a problem with them doing that? Or because the way it's written right here, they would only be allowed to take 6 dissertation credits really in a semester, and they have to take 9 to be able to use their full benefits, or more to use their full benefits. Is that a consideration for this, or are we going to be limited at like 6 credits for them?
Okay, thank you for those comments, Jen.
And we can talk later about it. I just wanted to bring up that there's.
Yeah, I think these are good things for us to think about. And I guess what I'll say is, when I say we expect students to register for 6 credits over 16 weeks, or, or what these, like what just sort of seems to make sense, that doesn't mean that our office honestly has like the ability, right, to set a limit. And I do think that in a program like yours that actually requires more than 12 credits for the dissertation, right? What that means to us is that your students are not trying to fast track that dissertation, right? That they are actually working on it for whatever period of time, and that they're going to be able, that they are going to have the time to generate a high quality dissertation. And that is really important to us, right? So that is part of what we do, is we're just trying to make sure that we have high quality dissertations, that just to say the extreme, we're not a diploma mill, right? Like that is obviously not what we want to have happening. And so I think it is a little bit program dependent on how I would even like answer the question, right? But to be clear, it's not that I or Kara has the ability to actually say your student cannot register for 9 dissertation credits, right? We don't. But what we're saying is we have concerns if we see that a student is trying to do all of the work of a dissertation in 8 weeks, right? That's a different scenario than what you're describing, I think. That's my biggest concern. I just, my eyebrows, like it's a red flag, right? Does that make sense?
Definitely. And we structure our classes so they have one class paired with dissertation credits, because otherwise mine fall off the boards because it's an online degree. That's understandable. Thank you. So it could be on an individual basis. It wouldn't have to be, everyone has to stick to this. If there's someone with special, like I have one student who doesn't work 6 months of the year because they're, summer-based work.
Absolutely,
That
right?
kind
I
of
mean, when
thing.
I share the CMU policy about workload per credit, again, I didn't know that the specifics of that policy. I have to be honest with you, right? I mean, I don't expect that most people do know that, but it is there for a reason. And I think that, again, student situations vary. And if a student can work on a dissertation full time, okay, that's great. But we know that in some of our, especially our online programs, right, that individuals are doing this amazing job of working a full-time job while they're earning their degree. And in that scenario, right, then it starts to like starts to kind of wonder, how is this happening, right? So yes, I think things will vary. Okay, thank you for those comments. I'm just gonna finish up with a couple more slides about just one mention about IRB approval. For human subject research, IRB approval is required before the start of the research if it is going to be included in a dissertation, or some journals require that approval. That means that if a student is analyzing data within a course or as part of their job duties prior to CMU IRB approval, those analyses cannot be included in the dissertation. This is federal law. This is not CMU. So I just want to draw people's attention to that. This is an excerpt from the CMU HRPP policy manual that the Office of Research Compliance has put together, and there's a relatively new section on student research. So I just wanted to let you know that that exists. And I also wanted to let everyone know or remind you that if there are no human subjects in the research, the student does not need to submit anything to the IRB. CMU does not require that. So just something to consider if we do occasionally hear that the IRB approval is sort of part of that, like a barrier sometimes in the timing of getting the prospectus approved. That office is working on things. They have a Go grant to get some new software. They're trying hard with the staff they have. But if a student doesn't have human subjects in the research, there's really no reason to submit anything to the IRB from the perspective of our office or overall CMU. So just wanted to mention that. And then
I also wanted to
lastly,
jump in real quick.
oh
Our
yeah,
office is partnering with Ben Jenkins, and he's going to be hosting an IRB workshop virtual for anyone to attend. We're going to be advertising that for him. It looks like it's going to be March 20th. It's going to be on a Friday at noon. So it'll provide lots of information, especially for students who are looking to get their prospectus approved sometime soon. Let them know what to expect, when they need IRB approval, when they should submit for IRB approval, all of that kind of thing.
excellent. Thank you, Kara. Okay, that should be a great resource, and we'll have to remember to record that one as well. So we have that. Okay, so we'll want to end on a positive note. Student awards. These are newly aligned with our regional and national awards. So the Outstanding Dissertation Award, the nomination window is April 27th to June 1st of this year. This alignment now means that we have two broad categories that alternate the even and odd years. This is set by the Council of Graduate Schools. So for 2026, we will be putting out a call to solicit nominations in the social sciences and in mathematics, physical sciences, and engineering. And then in 2027, those disciplines will be different. Each program can nominate one student for each of these awards, and then the graduate committee is going to review and identify the CMU awardees who will have a cash prize. And then the top student will move on to represent CMU in the national competition. And we did this in the fall with the Outstanding Thesis Award. Unfortunately, our nominee was not the winner in the regional Midwest Association of Graduate Schools competition, but it was really great to have a nominee to send forward to the Midwest Association. So we're looking forward to getting some great nominations for the Outstanding Dissertation Award. And again, we'll send out reminders. And then lastly,
We do have a question from Dave Zanata.
Yeah, great.
About the thesis and dissertation awards, a lot of our students are finished and long gone after when in this window when a nomination might happen. And I remember from when these were requested, there was some like there was stuff that the former student, now graduated student, would have to fill out, which wasn't trivial. And then there was also something about them having to attend potentially the national meeting, potentially on their own dime. These people are now out of the system and so on. And then there was also a suggestion that their faculty advisors should attend, but there was no money for the faculty advisor to attend any of this.
Okay, well, just a couple clarifications. So if what goes on, what is for the thesis award, what goes on to MAGS, like the most important thing is the abstract. And if the student did not write an abstract in sort of somewhat accessible language, right, we are suggesting that they have an opportunity to rewrite that and just to modify that language. That doesn't have to happen. And in fact, the thesis nominee that we put forward did not, well, maybe they made a couple subtle changes, but I don't, it was just a couple wording. Maybe they defined a term, something like that. I mean, that suggestion is only coming from the idea of trying to increase the odds of winning, right? So the judges come from, similar but not identical disciplines, and so you're just trying to communicate, the best way possible. In terms of needing to attend anything, the student does not need to attend anything back here at the CMU campus. They're going to be invited to come, but we understand if they cannot come, and they will still get their cash prize. In terms of going on to receive an award at the regional or national meetings, again, I'm not sure that that's required by those, but I will double check. I think the idea is, and what we wrote for sure, is that CMU will pay for the student to travel to the regional or national conference. So that is not on their dime. So that's the clarification. And whether the faculty member can go or not, obviously that's just up to you, but we don't have the funds to support that. And we're not at all, suggesting that's a requirement. Really, honestly, there's not, we've always had kind of, some kind of award, a scholarly award for theses and dissertations. And it's always been the case that we are reviewing materials of students who have graduated. That's, and left campus. So that's nothing new. And I guess, it's really up to a student, but I would ask your students. I would hope that no one assumes the student's not interested, because they might be willing to take 15 minutes just to take a look at that abstract and just revise it a tiny bit. And I can clarify about that attending the regional and national meetings and whether that's like a real requirement or just an invitation. Because I think this is true for all schools, right? The way this works is true for universities and students across the country. And they've all moved on to things, right? Our thesis awardee is in medical school right now. So obviously a very busy person, just like all of our students who go on to great jobs. So understood, I understand the concerns, and we'll try to tweak our language to make it more clear. We're not trying to put up barriers, and we really hope we get some more great nominations. I think it's a great opportunity for our students, and I think it's a great opportunity to showcase CMU at a regional and national level and get some great attention to our programs, which could help with recruiting, potentially. But thank you for those comments. I do appreciate those. Okay, last one, reminder about student fellowships, the King Chavez Parks Future Faculty Fellowship. The application deadline is March 30th. This is a very narrow, very specific fellowship. The recipient must obtain a master's or doctoral degree at a public Michigan university. That would be what they're doing with us today. And then this has to be a student who is going to go on to a post-secondary faculty teaching or approved administrative position at a post-secondary institution and stay there for approximately 3 years, depending on how much funding they receive. So again, this is going to be a little bit narrow, only for individuals interested in those careers, but the fellowships are fantastic, and there's a lot of support here on campus for our King Chavez Parks Future Faculty Fellows. Nikita Murray is the contact if you are interested or think you might have a student who could benefit from this. Okay, thank you again for attending. We really appreciate your time and all of the energy and efforts you make to support your grad students. If you have suggestions, again, feel free to put them in the chat now. Feel free to email or call or drop into our brand new offices in Park Library. We're always happy to see you. Thank you again.